Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Joshua versus Wallin fight. If you're new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Joshua is 26-3 with 23 KOs, and Wallin is 26-1 with 14 KOs. This fight is a 12-round fight in the heavyweight division. Joshua's last fight was a win via KO in round 7 versus Hellenius, and Wallin's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Gassiev. Wallin is a southpaw. Wallin's loss came via unanimous decision versus Fury in 2019. Joshua's losses have come versus Usyk in 2022 and 2021, and Ruiz Jr. in 2019. So, to speak a bit more about what I've just mentioned there, of course, this being on a huge bill, it's on arguably one of the most stacked cards of all time, and for this card, because it is as stacked as it is, I'm going to be doing multiple predictions for this. So we've got this one coming out first, then we'll have the Wilder Parker one out tomorrow, and then the day after I'm going to be doing a whole rest of the card predictions. So similar to how I do my kind of like YouTube boxing predictions where I go through the whole card, I'm going to be doing the same because of how good and stacked this card is for that video. So stay tuned for both of them. And to go back to speaking about this fight, of course, this being a huge fight for both fighters, but for different reasons really. I mean, Wallin, if he goes on to win this fight, it's making him a huge platform. It's then putting him in arguably the top 5 heavyweights maybe in the world, arguably. And if Joshua goes on to win this fight, then it sets up the huge fight that everybody's been dying to see between him and Wilder, and pretty much guarantees that that fight is going to happen, of course with Wilder winning as well. But arguably people are in more doubt of Joshua losing this one than Wilder losing his fight. So Joshua has a lot of pressure on him here. Wallin has the underdog mentality, which I mean I'm sure he's used to now, fighting Fury, and to be fair, even fighting Gassiev when he went to his home country and fought him there. So I think he's used to that, but Joshua, he's also used to having all the pressure on him as well. Of course, he is coming off a KO victory versus Hellenius. It wasn't a standout, amazingly good performance, but it was against a tough opponent, and it was a confidence-boosting victory, and it was still an impressive knockout nonetheless. And Wallin's last fight, I mean, it was a shutout victory really against Gassiev. It was a fight which he dominated majority of the rounds, and in a fight which, like I said, was in Gassiev's home country, he had to really kind of sway the judges to his side, and he did that. And to be able to get a decision win when he is the away fighter is a very credible thing, and he did that by outboxing him majority of the fight. Of course, Wallin being a southpaw, the last time that Joshua faced a southpaw, which everybody's been talking about, was Usyk, and I mean Usyk and Wallin are very different fighters really. I don't think Wallin is at the level of Usyk, but there's still similarities there in that aspect. And you know, southpaw's a southpaw at the end of the day. It's always going to be a tricky obstacle to face, and Wallin's loss being against Fury, it was a very close fight really. I mean, Fury I think did win, but it was arguably Fury's at that point especially toughest test that he had faced, and it was a fight which nobody really expected to be that tough and that close, and it ended up being a very good fight. And so, you know, Wallin, he's definitely got some credibility about him. He makes for a good opponent, and it's going to be a tough matchup for Joshua, and it's definitely somebody that which Joshua shouldn't be overlooking and just thinking about the Wilder fight. It's definitely a fight which he needs to be staying switched on, and he needs to be aware throughout the whole fight. And you know, obviously he's coming off losses not too long ago from Usyk, and since then he's been active this year. It's been a very good thing to see him active this year, but I suppose he's improving with both these fights so far, coming off to defeats, but I'm still yet to see something crazily good, and we're still in this kind of maybe new era of Anthony Joshua where we're still not sure if we're going to be seeing the older Anthony Joshua style technique where he's coming in and just letting everything go and being reckless, ruthless, and just getting opponents out of there with his physical strength, or if we're going to be seeing this new boxing technical aspect Anthony Joshua. And I mean, with him now getting another new coach in Ben Davison, it's a good coach. It's a high level coach. It's a coach which of course it has faced Wallin before with Fury, but you know, it's a coach which it's a new coach nonetheless. It's another new coach. It's another new style he's going to have to deal with, and you know that's definitely can play a factor. I think Ben Davison has succeeded in the higher level with people like Lee Wood, but I think he's also possibly struggled a little bit in the past at the higher level with training fighters who are already at the highest level. In that of, I mean, Fury, he got the chop after the fight versus Wallin. Fury gave Ben Davison the chop, and there's also been fighters like Josh Taylor and I believe Billy Joe Saunders as well. And so there's been a couple of times which I feel like Ben Davison possibly hasn't delivered quite as much as he could have at world level. But in recent note, I mean, he's been very good with Lee Wood and got him from British level to a world level, and you know he's definitely got momentum himself, and I'm sure he's giving confidence to Joshua. But like I said, it's a new style, it's a new thing that he's going to have to adapt with Joshua, and how is he going to deal with that? Joshua as a fighter, I mean, it's difficult to really describe his attributes. I'm going to, but it's like I said, down to what kind of, maybe not version, but what type of attributes that we see from him coming into this fight. But you know, on his good day, on his best, he can be a powerful fighter. Nonetheless, that power is always going to be there. He's a fighter which has proven that he has power, and like I say, it's still there now. I would say he's arguably more determined for this fight than I've seen him in his past few fights, probably since I've seen him since the maybe second Ruiz fight, or you know, he looks very determined for this one, and I think it possibly could be a new switched on mindset attitude going into this fight. Of course, like I say, he's been active. That's only going to be a good thing for him. He can be aggressive. When he is aggressive, he can come in, really use his physical presence and bully opponents, dominate fights on the front foot, and I feel like that's what I'd like to see him do against Wallin here. He can also draw you in. This is the other side of him, where he can draw you in and then pick a shot from there, and you know, he can do that. It's not amazing, but he can do that. He's got good stamina. I think sometimes when he comes in with his bit more aggressive style, possibly he does tire out a bit in the later rounds, and this more boxing type style can definitely help his stamina. But I suppose at the end of the day, you have to be adding in different parts of your game, and you know, if he can learn to be a capable boxer and a technical boxer, which he is slowly improving in from what I've seen, he can then, I mean, it'd be nice to see also elements of the older style of his coming through and then mixing them together, but I'm just yet to see them properly mixed together yet. He can control the centre, and he does that very well, and that's something which I feel like he has to do against Wallin, because any time that opponents are trying to move on the back foot and trying to stay out of the way of Wallin is very good at being able to even to close the gap or control the range and control the pace, just because opponents are letting him do that. His jab, in my opinion, is back. Like his jab in the past was something which set up his shots very nicely, and it was a very key attribute to his, but Usyk seemed to kind of find the recipe to work it out and really kind of deter Joshua from using it. But from that recent fight versus Helenius, it seemed like maybe it's not back to its best yet, but it's on the return and it's improving, and he's setting up his shots a bit better again, and you know, it's an attribute which is still there, and it makes him a technical boxer. He's changing levels a bit more. I think he's got a little bit more variety in his shots now. He plants his feet. He didn't really do it too much against Helenius, but when he does do it, he can be ruthless with it, and when he does put on the pressure in the process, it's when we've seen him at his best. He won't be moved, and like I say, I feel like that is a good thing against Wallin, and is very good at, like I say, controlling the centre and being resilient. He is explosive. That explosiveness, like I say, we haven't seen it too much as of recent, but when he does do it and does release it and has released it in the past, it is very hard to come and fight against. Wallin's a big guy, but I feel like he's the naturally bigger guy as Joshua, so he's always had to use that to his advantage, and I feel like he's going to be able to do that again. He's, in my opinion, had defensive improvements. Obviously, he's been getting hurt in, maybe not hurt, but damaged in fights as of recent. Like in the Franklin fight, he got cut up a bit. In the Helenius fight, he got cut up a bit. But I feel like he is improving a bit, and I feel like he's not coming in, when he's not coming in as wild and as reckless as he has done in the past, it means that he's getting hit. He's still getting hit, but he's getting hit a bit less, and he's taking less destructive damage from just coming into shots. And so, you know, there's defensive improvements coming there. negatives about him, I mean, it's reluctancy, hesitancy. We've seen that as of recent. He's been, since the Usyk fight especially, I mean, people have been dragging this back all the way to the Ruiz fight, the Klitschko fight. We've seen reluctancies, hesitancies, weaknesses in his mindset to really let go and really show what he's about. And like I say, that aggressive style, which defensively wasn't the most sound, he's gone to now just being the complete opposite and just really not wanting to be aggressive at all and really not wanting to push the pace. And I feel like in a fight versus Helenius, he could have got him out multiple times earlier on. Helenius was waiting there to get knocked out, in my opinion, and he could have done that much earlier, but he didn't. And I think that's blamed down to reluctancy. And against Wallin, I feel like you can't be reluctant, because I feel like Wallin can definitely just pick up rounds from outworking you. Sometimes he can wait too long to let his shots go, and if he's going to be waiting too long because Wallin's going to be a moving target, then he could definitely just be, I don't know, a bit too scared to release his shots. Like I say, a bit too reluctant, and it's not something the best. Closing distance can sometimes be a bit of a problem for him. When he used to do it, he, like I say, used to do it wild, recklessly, and it was efficient, but it wasn't overly technical. But now he's just not really doing it too much at all. He's sticking at a mid-range, and I don't know, when he is doing that, I feel like he's smothering his work a little bit. But closing distance, his head movement isn't overly impressive anymore, or it really has been, to be honest, and there's not loads of defensive movement either. He can struggle a bit against counterers, and he's been showing that now. And even against Helenius, he was getting countered a bit. He maybe, like I say, overlook him. He has all the pressure on him, like I mentioned. He most definitely does overthink fights, and that's all down to mentality and all down to what mentality is going into this fight, if he is going to be overthinking this or not. And we'll have to wait and see if he is. And it shows in fights, and that adds to reluctancy and hesitancy. He can struggle a bit on the back foot himself. I feel like he isn't really an overly capable counter puncher, and if he does end up going on the back foot, then I feel like he could struggle. But I don't know if Wallin is going to be able to put him on the back foot. And he can sometimes be a bit uptight and a bit stand straighter up, and it's just not as loose and as natural as it seemed in the past. And that's something which definitely can move away from, like I say, that natural aspect, that relaxed aspect, and can make his work harder and seem more difficult to do. And so, to speak about his opponent, Wallin, of course, he's known for moving well. He does move solidly, and there's parts there which is defensively he's a sound fighter. I don't think he moves as well as that of Usyk, but I think he moves respectively well. Like I say, he's more of a defensive fighter, not necessarily a bad thing, and it's not necessarily a crazily good thing either, but it means he's well disciplined, and it means that he's composed on the back foot, and he can take a shot well, and he isn't just going to be your average heavyweight where he's just going to be coming in not really having a defence at all and just throwing bombs. It's a definitely different type of matchup for Joshua. He is, like I say, used to being the underdog. He's going to have that underdog mentality for sure. He is comfortable, like I say, on the back foot, and I feel like Joshua, who controls the centre, is probably going to put him on the back foot. But I feel like sometimes, to be fair, Wallin can also operate well on the front foot. He gives his all in fights, and he's shown that in fights versus Fury 1 especially. When the pressure's on, he gives it all. Maybe not in fights where he's against opponents who are lesser opponents, where in the past maybe he seemed to not quite give it his all and not quite seem quite as up for it. But I feel like this is most definitely he's going to be a fight which he's going to be up for and give his all in. He's not intimidated against opponents, and like I mentioned, going back to the Fury fight, even the Gassiev fight, he wasn't intimidated against powerful punches and opponents who are seen to be able to cause damage, and it means he's probably not going to be intimidated of that of Joshua. He counters well, like I say, controls the range well. He's got good consistent shots. They might not be the most powerful, but they're consistent, and they're scoring point shots, and they're going to be, like I say, coming out consistently all night. He's got good stamina. I mean, it's impressive stamina. It's not crazily good stamina. It's good stamina though, and it means that he can move relatively well for most of the fight. He has got a good chin. He can take a punch. He fights off his jab well and utilises that well. Changes levels as well and knows how to frustrate you. He has a good high guard and can utilise that a lot. And when he's not moving, he can definitely utilise a high guard. And sometimes, like when he's, like I say, he's not crazy good of a mover as Usyk, but he does utilise a high guard when necessary to then be able to kind of get away with maybe not moving as much, or to get away with being able to take a shot or two. Negatives about him, I mean, power. He's not got the craziest good power, and he's known for that now, and he knows that himself, so he's not going to be trying to just go into a firefight. He can struggle a bit of lack of output at times. Sometimes he's a bit too defensive. He's not overly physical either. Be a bit too safe at times. Can coast through rounds. And, but I feel like he's not going to be trying to do this against Joshua. He can struggle to push the pace a bit and can struggle against a high output against him. And he has had problems in fights in past. And, there's been fights which, even in the Gassiev fight, it looked like maybe not he was hurt, but he was getting hits with certain big shots. In the Fury fight, he was getting hit with big shots. In the Sokolowski fight, he was getting hit with big shots. And there's been a couple of fights where he's been getting hit with bigger shots, and he's obviously been able to deal with it. But against that of a high output, I don't know. But I don't know if Joshua's even going to come with that of a high output. When he does get pushed back himself and isn't just naturally being able to move around the ring, and he is getting pushed back, then I feel like up against the ropes, if you can cut off the ring, you can cause damage to him. And I feel like he is open in the middle. He has a high guard, but it's more to blocks the more wider hooks coming in. But I feel like if you go to the body, uppercut, there's options there on the inside. And Joshua, I mean, he hurt Wilder, Hellenius with a good overhand. And if he can maybe bring that a bit central or maybe step into it better, I feel like he could possibly hurt Wallin with something like that. He can move only to the right at times, and that's why I say the variation isn't quite as much as that of Usyk. He doesn't have as good head movement as Usyk, and when I say he's moving only to the right, it means it can be predictable at points. And if Joshua can work out a plan to keep him moving to the right to then go walk onto shots of his, then that could be a good thing for him. And he can slow down in fights, like I say, as well, and has showed weaknesses in fights in the past, like I mentioned. Joshua is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Joshua will win via majority decision. I've said majority decision. I mean, it could be unanimous, it could be split. I think it's going to be an awfully close fight. I think there's going to be times where both fighters seem like they are having a better go at it, and I feel like Joshua could find more success into the later rounds. But I feel like the majority decision, in my opinion, is probably fair. I feel like Wallin's going to have to do an awful lot to win rounds and to win a unanimous decision, and I just don't really see it, in my opinion. I think Joshua, like I say, he's going to be coming into this more determined with the fights on the horizon for him. I think he's going to be very determined going into this one, and really going to be wanting to prove a point against an opponent who is seen as like a boogeyman type opponent, or opponent which nobody really wants to fight. And if he could make a statement here, then it'd be amazing. Do I feel like he will be able to? No, I think he's going to be able to win a few rounds and, like I say, improve later on, but I think it's going to be a decision victory. And then go on to fight Wilder. I haven't even mentioned, and there's no point in my opinion even mentioning any other opponent who he can go on to fight. Wilder's the next option. It has to be, it should be, probably going to be one of the biggest fights in 2024 alongside Fury Usyk, and it's the fight that has to happen, and from the sounds of it, it's going to be happening hopefully March time-ish next year if they both win and both don't get injured or anything like that. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like this, didn't you like this? Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.